Hello, everybody, and welcome. Michelle here, also known as Stoic Herbalist. And today I got something really special for you. We're gonna do an interview today, and I really want to bridge the world of vibrational healing, bach flower remedies, and stone medicine. And I think working with stones is incredibly beautiful. It is incredibly healing, and anyone can do something with stones. I'm so excited about this, and I really want to share my excitement with you. Now, before I'm going to introduce you to this very special guest, I want to tell you a little bit of an interesting story. So, for those who know me or don't know me, I'm not really tech. And so, by stupidity, or maybe better said, by divine intervention, I sent a whole bunch of people on my email list free access to my course unintentionally. And so one person emailed me back and said, "Hey, Michelle, I think there is a mistake here. I don't think I should have access to your course for free, right?" And I found that really kind. I find that really sweet of this person. And I say, "How about you keep the course as a token of my gratitude because you were so honest?" And that person said that's quite interesting because I asked for a gift from the universe yesterday, and today I get this mail from you. So that was quite interesting. Now, a few weeks later, the same person sent me an email saying, "Hey, you might be interested in this." And that was a master class of my following guest. So that's quite beautiful, isn't it? And so, with that, I want to introduce you my next guest, which is Sarah Thomas. She has a Bachelor of Science, Master of Acupuncture, and she's a licensed acupuncturist. She is a healer and educator at heart, guided by a deep devotion to the ancient wisdom held within the earth itself. As the owner of Clarity Acupuncture in Asheville, North Carolina, she has walked alongside thousands of people on their own journeys of spiritual and physical transformation, holding space for their becoming. Sarah's path has always been one of pioneering and preserving sacred knowledge. She created North Carolina's first studies in mineral healing program at Appalachia School of Holistic Herbalism. And each year she brings her teachings to earth medicine conferences across the country. If that wasn't enough, in 2009 she followed an even deeper calling and founded the Upper Clarity School of Stone Medicine, a home where healers and light workers from around the world gather to train in the Daoist tradition of stone medicine and earn certification in this profound lineage. And at the heart of it all, Sarah's Tao is very simple and vast: to resurrect the ancient knowledge and uncharted potential of healing and awakening that live within stone. With no further ado, here's Sarah. So, hello, Sarah, and welcome to this little podcast. So glad that you're here.
Hey, Michelle.
All right, so the bio tells us a little bit more about what you're doing. Maybe you can let us know, for those who are completely new to who you are and to even what stone medicine is, maybe you can let us know a little bit. How did you become what you are today, and how did the stones and needles reach out to you?
Well, I grew up in the suburbs in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was an artist and I went to art school actually. And in art school, I by this wild coincidence situation, I got to get a treatment from an acupuncturist, which back then was like in 1998 or 1999, that was like in Pennsylvania, that was like going to a voodoo witch or something. It was just very weird. It was just out of the ordinary. Nobody I had known had ever done acupuncture, but I went there without any expectations. But what happened to me was totally profound and life-changing. And it was the sessions and the movement that I felt in this ancient healing, but it was also my relationship with that practitioner was so profound. And she taught me what it was to really be present with someone and what healing really means when I really needed it. It was right around the time of 9/11 in the United States. And I was going through so much and everything it was like everything was falling apart, and she pulled everything back together with me and for me. And I went on as an artist. I went on to go to grad school, but um, something just kept coming back about this acupuncture. I loved it
Mhm.
so much. I just loved it so much. I would think about it before bed. I would think about it in the morning. I just loved Chinese medicine. And it was really the spiritual side of it that I loved so much. And she just kept coming back, and it kept coming back. And one day, 4 days before I was supposed to leave for the master's in painting, I just was up all night one night, just grabbed by spirit in this moment of shifting destiny. And just, I realized by the morning, I said to the people around me, I'm actually not going to painting school. I'm going to acupuncture school. And everybody was like, what? And I went to acupuncture school. I felt totally at home there. And like, yeah, like I don't know, I feel like an old spirit, like something ancient, or like I've known it before when I'm around Daoist medicine. And then something even more unique happened to me, because by the end of acupuncture school, I was picked up by this very old and rare lineage of stone medicine, which I got to and have been since that time studying stone medicine deeply out of China, out of Daoism. So it's classical stone medicine. It's not something, that's being necessarily like written right now. It's old.
Mhm.
And the stone medicine is kind of like herbal medicine, in that in ancient Taoism, they kept records, whole compendiums and materia medicas of not only what herbs do, but what stones do. So we don't have any knowledge like that in the world, in any other culture, that where you can be like, oh, this is what malachite did, this is what alum did, this is how they were using gold, this is how they were using cinnabar. Mostly what we have now, as you know, is in the 70s, we had this revival of this new age information where people were channeling
Mhm.
what stones were saying. And but there's actually this old stone medicine and these old roots. And I say it's like herbal medicine because they can crush up stones and ingest them, and use the constituents of the stones to heal physical disease. But the real the real secret powers are in using stones in their really for their beyond the physical, but in their mystical powers and qualities to engage us in the spiritual and emotional realms of our lives, and even the soul realms of our lives, which is pretty great. So then I've been teaching and taking care of people and being an acupuncturist and everything all that time too.
It really feels and looks like you found your calling. You're really called by something greater, and it just captured you and you follow that calling. I love that. And I can really, I can in a way relate to that because I remember when I started studying herbalism, I've before was chasing degrees and what do I do with my life? And I really didn't, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do this or that. But when I just started studying herbalism, I felt like I was in Hogwarts, and especially the traditional, the more old methods, the real stuff, it just yeah, and I remember that I was a little bit in a wobbly situation with no money, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. I was like, is this wise? It's like, I don't know. I feel like I have to do this. Like you can't do else somehow, and find it because it's courageous as well. You've kind of prepared for one way, and then it's like, no, I'm called to do this. I'm gonna I'm gonna hop on the other train here. That's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
That's great. Well, and you did well by listening to that beautiful intuition of yours.
It was overwhelming. I mean, we're all on a mission, and those moments when we remember that mission and that North Star are so, I don't know, I'm so grateful for those moments in my life.
Yeah, I think it's definitely helpful also when you have these very clear signs, moments. I think you sometimes have to be open to them as well, and sometimes they're so clear. I remember I took my little friend that I told you about here. That was so weird because I wasn't looking for this, for the stone at all. I wanted small stones for the elixirs, and I was like, something about the stone just can't stop looking at it. And I remember I had it in my hands in the car, and I just cried on it, but it felt like like love. Like I couldn't even explain why I really cried. It just I couldn't help it, and it felt so wonderful. And so that was quite interesting. And I can imagine that you had many of these profound moments, obviously. So I really want to bring us a little bit to the similarities and the differences with Bach flower remedies because most of my viewers are here either for emotional or more spiritual type of healing. I always try to kind of tie the spiritual world back to the Bach flower remedies because they're generally used for emotions, but I think that is just the top of the iceberg. I think that way of thinking about them has nothing to do with what they're really doing, and so I try to bring that a little bit more up front here. And so that kind of the healing on a more emotional, not even psychological, but emotional, spiritual level. I think that is where there's a huge link with stone medicine. And it seems almost like Bach flower remedies are a little bit more known, but stone medicine, as you say, there's sort of a new age movement, but real stone medicine because they are kind of two different things, I would say. Real stone medicine isn't really something very known. And so maybe you could elaborate a little bit on the differences and the similarities with Bach flower remedies as to get my audience to be very interested and say, hey, I also want to have a look at the stone world.
Well, sure. So to bring the Taoist cosmology back into play, because that is my foundation, of course, they believe everything is one and everything is holographic and everything is alive. So they don't leave anything out of the story when it comes to what could be helpful, what could be a medicine, what is alive, what can engage with us. So they certainly wouldn't draw a line at stones or draw a line at flowers. They use animal parts, seeds, nuts, grains, stones, everything. I mean, there's nothing that they didn't use because everything was created for a purpose and everything's alive and everything's ultimately one. So in that oneness, there's always this relativity that we look at, such as if you look at a stone relative to a flower is something that has a much shorter life, right? It's much more easy to see on the surface. You get a lot of sensory engagement. Um, and a stone is something that is below the surface, has a much longer life, and maybe um, something that would connect to us over deeper or longer cycles of time, even. And I think a way to say that more simply is um, we use stone medicine a lot. If you're going to talk about relatively, like a stone relative to a flower, we use stone medicine a lot to engage something that is much more chronic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just talking relative. I know flower essences can do all of this too, but if we put them side by side and we had
Mm-hmm.
all of these tools in our tool belt, we would look at stone medicine and say, we need stones to engage things that we have been dealing with on long, long cycles of time. Like I've had this since birth, or I've had this for 20 years, or I feel like this goes back to many past lifetimes for me, as we all have lived millions and billions of lives and have like these deep soul records. And the other thing is that we would use stones to engage that soul level energy. Like we are so much more beyond just this lifetime. So we're existing in multiple timelines, lifetimes, dimensions, and realities. So stones take us really deep into that soul level, and then they engage things that have happened on long, long cycles of time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take a flower essence, you might have, let's generalize it, but you might have an easier time feeling it in the moment.
Yeah.
Like I had the shift right away. But if you take a stone medicine, you might not have like, oh, I felt it right away, but it might be like something, wow, that really deeply shifted me as I stayed with it.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I mean, this is also part of Taoism, but I always like to look at the signature of doctrines, or the doctrine of signatures, better said. And I like to always look at something and then try to figure out what is it doing? Why is it growing that way? Why is it growing now? Why is it growing here? And I try to explain a little bit the difference between mushroom essences and flower essences. And mushroom essences work much more on the unconscious, they work underground. And a just very, very brief moment that the fruits of the mushroom are visible. So it makes so much sense that they're tickling us, unconsciously, and you're not fully conscious of it. And I always say flowers, they grow in sunlight. It's at the peak moment. They're like, you can't ignore them. They're the signature of the plant, really. And so it makes sense that because of they're kind of, the body of a plant is much more ethereal than a stone in a way. Like it can wither very quickly. It lives very, most flowers at least, they don't live very long. And so it makes sense that they work more on the emotional stuff. I wouldn't say superficially, but they do work spiritually as well, I believe. But I also believe that I mean, the innate characteristics of a stone are they are dense, so can imagine they also work more physically on the body than flower essences, but at the same time, because of the long life that they have and the patience that it requires to grow, as I don't even know if you would say grow a stone, grow a stone grows, I suppose, in a way. I mean, it's made over such an immensely long time. I always say it's wonderful. Like, you were there for millions of years and now you're here. What are the odds, right? This is amazing. I mean, total reference. And so that makes so much sense, like, that they work on something slower, deeper, more in the shadows, something more, yeah, like you need more patience in a way. Like sometimes people come with flower essences and they say, "Oh, I felt it right away," or within 3 weeks you do feel in most cases something. But I do feel that stone essences require a little bit more patience. But when they work, and also, you know, you need a lot of awareness, to really see things. And I often get that kind of, and this is interesting. I often get questions from my students like, how many drops per milliliter, or how do I know when to stop? And we as healers, we don't really know anything. I'm like, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. But we only know what we can know in this infinite universe of possibilities. I mean, sometimes people say, yeah, but I took a remedy and then I felt nauseous. Is it what you ate? Is it what you saw on television, or you scrolled, or you took the remedies? Or it's almost impossible to really know what is really doing what. And I obviously you can have this key moment, just like when I took the stone on my hand. I was like, wow, like that was undeniably the stone. And the same thing goes with the remedies. But it was interesting when I was taking your courses that I felt myself bombarded back as a student, and I can't help, of course, to have that, am I doing this right, Or how much or how big should the stone be, or this kind of stuff, which is of course normal because there needs to be some kind of protocols, otherwise it's just, whatever. But I do really appreciate how much room you leave. Like you give the protocols, you give a set of rules, things that are, that you should know, that you should be aware of. But then you really leave the student room to experience their own role in the process there. And process is not even a good word here, I think. But it was kind of interesting for me because I always say, oh yeah, my students do that. And I kind of want to help them understand that how many drops isn't really that relevant per se, or I mean, or what remedies are taking is very relevant, and at the same time it's almost less relevant than we know. And I feel like it's very similar with stone medicine. Of course, you need to know what these stones do, and but there is a big part of us that needs to kind of step back and then let, when you've done the work, let the process unfold, let the flowers do the work, let the stones do the work. What would you say to someone who wants to start working with stones and he's all in their head, like, what protocol and what stones? How big should this stone be? Is it this good or should it be this? All these kind of random questions, and I had them of course as well. What would you say to someone like that?
Well, I find it the same with a homeopathic remedy, an essential oil, flower essence, a stone elixir. When we are tuned in and we smell it, or we take that drop of it, or even just like we hold that stone, and we're kind of slowed down and tuned in, there's all of this frequency coming from the field of possibility, right? There's all of this frequency coming from, you can call it the oneness. I mean, it's the field of all possibility. There's all of this frequency. And no matter which one you take, what happens is uh I almost see it like grids, like beautiful geometric grids and of frequency all around me. No matter what you take when you're tuned in, what happens is like one of those, all possibility becomes like one of these possibilities, and you see like a purple grid or feel like a blue light, or and oh, I just felt actually my dog come in, or you get this sense or this intuition, something illuminates from the field of all possibility, and depending on what stone or flower you're using, it can illuminate a different part of these grids that are already connected to you. It's just that it illuminates as you feel, oh, I feel that pathway. I just had an interesting memory come back. Now, the mind, it's just always going to doubt. There's just nobody's mind is different than anybody else's. We have the same mind. The mind is doubting. The mind is it's looking for concepts. The mind wants everything in a categorical chart, and the mind is just seeking answers. So I just would say to them, it's very, very normal to do all that when you're in the mind. I mean, that is what the mind does in all of us. The thing is that we all have this ability to shift out of the logic of the mind and to shift back into the logic of the heart and the body, which this is where the feminine comes into play so much, because Mother Earth is a feminine being. And the feminine is like, when we are in our feminine, no matter what biological sex we are, but women are great guides here because it's more natural for them. But when we're in our feminine, it's easier for us to feel and incite that logic of the body and heart and the senses and be in that pathway. And then it's interesting because you might become conscious and the mind might be doubting, but you're still feeling it over here. You're still feeling what is becoming illuminated. I think letting ourselves be in the heart and the body and the intuition, just, it's all right there. We already have it, is what I want people to know. There's nobody out here who, if they were like, I want to consciously shift from, being identified with the mind that's doubting and trying to figure everything out and have answers to things. If they're like, I'm consciously going to shift to just like, what is my body feeling? What is my heart feeling? Like, what do I know at this level of the senses? It's going to be there. The information's there. The grids are there. You already know. It's like, it's all right there. We've been doing this for a long time. Anybody who's listening to this, we've had many, many lifetimes experiences. We have generations behind us who have walked in these forests and worked with these trees and everything. We've been doing, we know how to do this. We really do. We've used essential oils, flower essences, stones to have birth processes, to have death processes. Like, we've been walking through the forest teaching our grandchildren how to do these things. Like, you can remember that you remember. That's something that, and it's don't even be like, well, I hope my mind someday will stop doing this. Your mind's never going to stop doing this. It's just shifting out of the dimension of the mind into the dimension of the heart.
It's quite funny. That makes me think a little bit of when people need Bach flower remedy Serato for the self-doubt, and they're like, oh, when I take this, I will trust my intuition and then I will never make the wrong decision ever again. It's almost like they're misinterpreting what knowledge or what wisdom that they're gonna pick up, and they're looking for that certainty. It's like, no, you're gonna trust your intuition and whatever that decision may be.
Yeah.
And it's also quite interesting because I feel like when I started my Bach flower journey, I really wanted to know everything. Is there science and all the books, and I'm gonna read everything. And the more I know about it, the more I'm like, it doesn't really work like that. Like it's almost like the masculine comes first, the ratio, the protocols, the knowing, but then you make it your own. Like I feel like a good practitioner is really, or I'm working mainly with people, helping them heal themselves, their difficult emotions and patterns, recurring patterns, and so on. But I almost feel it doesn't matter if it's about a practitioner or someone who's working on themselves. If you're doing this good with yourself, at some point you almost have to let go of the knowledge and the protocols and step really into what does all of this means for me exactly. And you teach that so beautifully in the course. Uh, that was for me also very helpful to translate that to my students. Like, hey, it's okay, like how am I gonna bring this that it's okay?
Yeah, I actually I am fascinated with that whole situation. And I mean, we can all start out finger painting. I mean, take painting as a metaphor. We can all paint and, enjoy painting by our intuition. And it maybe in seventh grade, you're like, now I'm actually going to learn the craft of painting. I mean, it's hard. I did that. You fall on your face a lot. You have to learn all of the color palettes, all of the mechanisms, all of the brushes, all of the oils, all of the lubricants, all of the canvases. And when you go through that process of knowledge and then you just keep working on the craft, what eventually happens, as you're saying, Michelle, is what eventually happens is you end up in the present moment with the painting, or in the present moment with the treatment room, or in the present moment with the client. And you end up working from your intuition again, and you're in your intuition. But when you look back at the formula you gave, or the painting you did, or the remedy, it's all actually full of knowledge. It's brilliant. It's full of knowledge, even though you're working from your intuition. I would look back and patients in the treatment room after just completely working from intuition, but having 20 years of knowledge, tons of study. And I'd just look back and I'd look at the stones on them and where they were, and I'd be like, that's brilliant. But it didn't feel like me who did it. I was like, that's absolutely brilliant. How did you look where the calcium is, look where the sodium is, look how it's structured to the knee and how everything's going up the spine. But I wasn't even thinking, at all. I was just in the moment in the intuition. So I feel like that's mastery, when you learn all of the knowledge and then you come back to intuition in the moment. But it's like you have to take that path through knowledge and then you can come back to intuition.
Yeah.
That's what mastery is to me. I don't know if it's right, but it feels, because it doesn't feel like me that does that anyway. It's like there's all of this coming through in those moments when you're just in the present moment. But it's different when I was just finger painting.
Yeah, it's beautiful how we say that, and I really relate to that. I think it will be helpful for a lot of people because so many of us we start so much in our head, and when you're not feeling well, you want to heal. Most people come towards the flower remedies and stone medicine. Most of them when they've already been through so much and they've already tried everything, and so they're often very desperate to get an answer, to get some relief of some form, and sometimes they get that quite immediately and sometimes they don't, and it has a lot to do with trust and awareness, and sometimes even taking a flower that maybe they don't need. But I often say sometimes you take a flower that you think you don't need, but maybe you do need it. You'll see that along the way. I still take flower remedies when I feel I need them, and of course I started with my stone medicine as well. And this is my first official, because I was making them, in a glass of water, and I was like, oh, this is my first in a, the Miron violet, the first official, like this is the official one.
That's
I'm
awesome.
very proud of that.
Congratulations. I love it. You
Thanks,
should hold it
Polly.
up and give us all a big transmission with us. Wow.
Yeah, why not?
Here comes
Yeah,
the
go for
energy.
it. Go for
Thank
it.
you.
Oh my God, I'm so enthusiastic. I don't even know what I was saying anymore. Oh yeah, that I don't need that immediate feedback anymore. I had a few big wins with the flower remedies. Just like, when I held a stone on my hand, I'm like, I understand how it works now, so I don't need to know exactly how it works anymore because I just know that it works. And that's just what a relief. So I take remedies and I'm like, okay, I will take it because I feel I need it, and I will see that it works along the line of my life somehow. That's
Yeah.
that's so nice when you're in that, position of trust. And I do
Yeah.
think that these vibrational ways of working with ourselves and with nature, I do think that they give us the opportunity to develop that trust. And in fact, I find it so beautiful. Like everything is right there for us. I don't have to go to the store and buy something complicated, Of course, you need to find the stones, you need to have the right flowers, but literally, as you say many times, you can go in a river and find a stone there. I have stones that I just found in the river that I asked, like, hey, you want to come with me? All right, come. And that's just so beautiful. I think I would love to get people a little bit out of that strictness of everything and just kind of more into that heart space of, you don't have to overthink all this. It doesn't work like a pharmaceutical problem that you have to take 2 milligrams and I don't know what, just not the same thing. I also wanted to ask you how, because, obviously I already know a little bit of that answer, but for our viewers, you can work with so many different ways with stones. And it makes me really excited. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Sure. Well, one of the applications that we use a lot is grids. And this is kind of based off of the ancient sites all around the world. I mean, if you think about it, we have not only everything that we know about what has happened on Earth, we know through the stones because they're permanent, and what we can see from long ago is held in the stones.
Mhm.
So they're the great record keepers, but also at all the great ancient sites and power spots, and Mother Earth is just like a human being with acupuncture points and these really important portals that we can nourish her through and link things together through and receive from. These ancient sites are always, there's always a lot of quartz, there's always a lot of water, and these grids link things together. And the interesting thing about grids too is that when you make a grid, it also penetrates through dimensions. So it's not just in this dimension. Grids are really good at penetrating into other dimensions. Like if I make a grid here, something in another dimension can see and interact with that grid. So they penetrate through dimensions. So grids, and like even just getting used to like, what is a 2-stone grid? What is a 3-stone grid? What are those doing? That's one of the applications. Another application is elixirs, what we've been talking about, putting stones in water and then letting the essence of the stone come out into the water. And then the water changes structurally. So it's no longer water. It has totally different properties. It's now a stone elixir. And so that is the application that we can ingest or make a poultice, a balm, a salve. We can take a little bit of stone elixir and put a little bit into an herbal remedy. And then we have the dimension of stone medicine via the elixirs. We can put some into a bath, right? It's pretty endless what you can do with an elixir. And then another application, of course, is on the body work. And this became popular in ancient China a long, long time ago when they were doing so much alchemical work with stones and seeking to find elixirs of transcendence and elixirs of immortality. They felt like a lot of people at that time felt like if anything was going to give us awakening, it would be stone medicine, it would be the crystals. And they seeked, or, immortality is permanence, right? And stones provide that permanence through that density. So they were making all those, and then they ended up heavy metal poisoning themselves because they were just ingesting way too much galena, lead, etc. And when they started to realize they were heavy metal poisoning themselves, before they had a full understanding of the periodic table, etc., and all
Mhm.
that, they got, they receded from stone medicine. They were like, oh, you can't just drink a bunch of mercury. But that is the time where some practitioners were like, let's just put the stones on the body
Mhm.
and let the stones interact with the skin and the body and let them move into the meridian system. And stones were actually the first acupuncture needles, of course, because they didn't have a stainless steel acupuncture needle
Mhm.
factory. They had flint and obsidian and little shards of tourmaline and opal, mica, etc. But that's another application, is doing on the body treatments, which I don't want people to be scared of that either. It makes a huge difference to just do a 2-stone grid or a 3-stone grid, or to hold 2 stones in the palms for kids, for pets. I mean, you can make it easy. You can do it before bed. You can do it in the morning. But if you think about it, they're the great batteries of our earth. They're the great energy generators. They feed the plants. I mean, everything that I need and have around me is from the plant kingdom, from the clothes that I'm wearing to the wallpaper on my wall. But the plants rely on the stones for life and minerals and essence. And so not only are they little energy generators, they're also our world's conductors, copper wires, etc. So it's easy to be like, oh, of course they would be great on the body tools. A living stone is a great on the body tool. Something living, all these different forms of stones, it's a little different than just a little stainless steel needle made in a factory, because you can gain a relationship with this, and there can be a lot more kind of like spiritual dynamics to it. Oh, now I want to play with all my stones. Here they are coming out.
Oh, wow. No,
All
but
right.
it's
I won't.
amazing. What a life within such a stone.
Yeah.
I love that they're really, I mean, gosh, they're like acupuncture, acupressure, there's sacred geometry involved. Like you say, it's really an endless, you can make flower elixirs together with stone medicine, with stone elixirs. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of things that you can do, and you can really find your own way within that immense world. That's just what I really love. I mean, obviously you can do a lot of things with flower essences as well. Most of the time we take it on the tongue, but there's a lot of things that you can do with that. But I feel like the world of stone medicine is even more elaborate in that way. You just have so many things that you can do. I could take flowers in my hand. I think they do absolutely also do something vibrational. However, because of how their body is structured, it's not going to last very long. It's going to be a little bit lighter than having a stone that is a million years old, obviously. Oh, I'm going to show you mine too. Look.
Oh
This
yeah.
one, of course, my
Yeah.
favorite. I
I
find
love
it
that.
so beautiful.
It is so beautiful. I love that stone.
I have this one. I took three little friends here today.
Oh, beautiful. Great color. Oh, beautiful. Is that a little lemon chrysoprase?
I think it is, I wrote it down serpentine, but it looks a little unusual.
Yeah, it could, yeah. That's beautiful. It could be like a little sulfur rich serpentine with like a little more um yellow in it than the green. Cool.
Yeah, I have a new favorite store. I have 30 minutes from here. I have a stone store, and I always ask them to give me a paper. And so I made a whole, I'm still very structured. So I made a whole map with all these stones, and gosh,
Oh,
it's like a kid in a candy store.
that's what I was gonna say. I don't know if we were gonna get to this, but just I want to encourage people who are watching, if you feel like this is interesting to me, it is so good to either find a new favorite crystal store or start going to gem shows. You might have some gem shows in your area, because when you just walk through and then just find that stone that you feel like you can't put down, like for some reason you just
Mhm.
can't put it down, or you just want to stare at it. And I like stare at it, like, or something just feels like I just have to hold this. I have to have this one. I have to have this in my pocket. Like that, just that feeling that's it. I mean, that intuitive guide to that feeling where you're like, I just have to hold. I feel like I can't put this down. Like you were saying, that absolutely means that there's really something there for you. And I have seen people work with a stone for 2 years, like maybe it's on their nightstand for 2 years, in and out of their pocket, before something shifts in their world, their programming, like a great chronic pattern just shifts. And then they'll be like, I know it was the stone. They feel the stone, like it, like finally, it's like after that relationship, they just feel the stone is connected to that, and that it's sometimes you'll get a dream or you'll get some kind of soul
Mhm.
communication too, that it was this, or sometimes the stone will break or something, or you'll lose it at that moment, or you'll actually, stones will change color, they'll get little nodules on them. They actually can change physical form pretty fast, even though they evolve so slowly. So sometimes you'll even get a sign in the world too, that stone like unlocked that piece for you finally. So yeah, go to gem shows, go to places where there's a lot of stones out, and just be like, which is the one that I just feel like I can't put down? And that's it. I don't even like I get, sometimes I'm like, don't even look it up in a book, because then you look it up in a book and then it says some gobbledygook
Yeah.
that someone channeled, and it's just, I don't know, is that part kind of, it messes with that connection, because the mind just
Yeah.
gets, it's like sometimes it doesn't even understand what it means, what the book is meaning, but then it just kind of breaks that, like what was unfolding naturally. Do you ever feel like that with the flower essences? Like, just don't even look it up, just feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. I often say to people, look what grows in your garden because
Mhm.
you don't always, I mean, there's so many more flower essences than the one from Bach. Of course, they are easy to use because they are the 38 basic human feelings that we all understand. We all understand jealousy, anger, desperation. But there's so many others. And sometimes I just say to people, look what you have in your garden. Because if you know what plant it is and it's growing wild there, and you're like, oh, there's overgrowing, it's like full of this kind, that most of the time tells you something. Or if you're on your way to work and a specific plant catches your eye, or you somehow have dreams about a plant or a color, or there's some kind of correlation with the plant, go there. That's telling you something clearly. And
Yeah.
so many
Well,
times I've had people say, "Oh, that's so strange because we've been working with this, and I actually have that growing in my garden." It's like, yes.
yeah. I was driving yesterday on a highway in the middle of the city, and there's this pile of there's this crack in the highway and this pile of just kind of like dirt in the crack, and this massive sunflower was growing out
Gonna grow
of,
here.
yeah, that highway, and just all the traffic was blowing past it. And it was all by itself, like just blowing with every car. And I just was looking at my rear view, like, that is amazing that that's growing out of that little thing of dirt. And it probably was not just like something I saw, but something to be like, hmm, interesting. Because I keep thinking about it.
Yes, and sunflower, yeah, there is I know I think I have sunflower essence actually downstairs. So I have, some of these that I'm like, oh, I feel like I might be able to use them sometime or on a client or anything like that. So yeah, you might want to look into that.
I know. I'm like, that was a little transmission.
I mean, and what are the odds that it grows there on its own? I mean, that's just so yeah, I love to watch the signs of that. And I mean, it's just that's what I also love about more that kind of, I mean, at least I'm not a specialist here at all, but what I understand about Taoism is that like nature is the teacher. Just look, look, it just everything is there. And I actually wanted to ask you a little bit, like separate from the whole stone, the beautiful stone world, Taoism in itself. I mean, it's just such an immense, amazing thing to learn and to live from, I think. What would you consider or is maybe the core tenet from you? Like if you would say this is the understanding, this is something very helpful for those who want to dig a bit into that. What would you say is
It's the
that's probably a crazy question because,
No, no, it's easy for me because I've been involved in it so long, but it's a path, it's a way, it's not a religion, it's not a dogma, it's like a way or a path that you can engage in. It's a cosmology, it's a way of seeing things. And the tenets are everything is one. So everything outside of oneness, the dualism, the polarity, everything is an illusion. It's Maya. It's something for us to play in and experience, but the only true reality is oneness. The other one is something that you said, and taking that seriously is taking Taoism seriously, that it is one. The other thing is what you said, that nature is the teacher. So they always felt like anything that you need to learn or know about wisdom, it's in the nature all around you. Like that truly is the only teacher that you ever need. And I think I love that, Taoism, there were some female priestesses of note, but it's not, when you think of Chinese medicine, ancient China, you don't think of women forward at all. But at the heart of it, they were like, oh, our teacher is Mother Earth. So there's something very feminine in that, which I feel like it is really so important to keep resurrecting that. And also because everything is one, everything is alive, right? So they say that all stones have a soul and all souls have a destiny. So even the stones that you have in front of you have this destiny, and they emerge from the earth and as part of a plan, and they too are on a mission,
and they
and like
choose
they
to
get to
come
be
with
with us
me.
in this
That's
moment. Yeah,
amazing.
like we're part of their little destiny. But It's like giving that respect to nature, that it too has a soul and a life and a destiny, a path of its own, is another piece of Taoism. So I think there's a lot of people out there who are kind of Taoist at heart.
Yeah.
You know,
I want to say that sounds a little bit like what I believe in.
yeah.
With my clients, I often use the four temperaments, but from a Western esoteric tradition. That's more my background. And I often look at what nature is doing. Like if I see like, okay, this person is just so perfectionist and they're rigid and they need rock water, kind of to flow with life again. And that's literally what I look at. It's been so helpful for me in understanding myself, my own relationship, what doesn't work, what works. What am I doing here? What maybe I should be doing, what I'm fighting against, what I should let go of. Just by really looking like, oh, I'm a fire earth type. And I used to be so extremely rigid. And so it makes so much sense that I need to add a little air to that very structured, dense earth where you can't plant a seed in it anymore, you just can't pierce it anymore.
Mhm.
And then you need rock water so that you can flow down the mountain like a river would. It wouldn't say, oh my God, here's a rock here. What now? No problem. Hey, let me go over, let me go under, let me go deep, let me go up. It's
Yeah.
it's just amazing what you can learn, what anyone really can learn just by sitting still with nature and just let kind of things come to you in a way. I
Yeah.
love
And
that.
one of the things nature says over and over again, too, for those of us who have been watching, is this principle of Wu Wei, which is like do nothing. And, like you don't have to control things, and it's all flowing, it's all happening, it's all working out perfectly. And we can actually like surrender to that flow. And that's one of the big things that nature teaches in a nutshell. Like, so Wu Wei, it's often when you do the Tao Te Ching, the answer is like just do nothing, let things naturally unfold, because the Tao is always unfolding perfectly. So not that we don't have agency or choice or should go forward or something, but there's a lot of just like letting things unfold naturally
Mhm.
inside this way of being.
Yeah, I
Of
think it's probably
trusting,
one of
yes,
the
that
most
we're,
difficult things.
it is,
Just
yeah.
letting
It's
it
like
be.
trusting that we're like, like trusting, just being comfortable with our lives the way it is, being comfortable with who we are now. That's like the heart of some of the spiritual change that someone can have inside, like this way of being.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to think about something interesting that you said in one of your courses. It was about, I don't know exactly how you said it, but it was about when working with entities, and you said something about and this is funny because I've talked with my mentor about this, and she's also completely like, "Oh, I love that." I know Bach flower remedies because of her, and now she knows stone medicine in more this way that you're teaching it, and she knows you because of me. So we're kind of become really two, similar in our stone adventure and sharing that, which is really beautiful because she's let me into this world, and now I'm, taking her into your world. And we were both really inspired by something you said about the entities. It's like I'm gonna roughly translate it, but I'm sure you're gonna understand what I'm saying. But you said something about when there is something like, so, let's say, a negative energy or something you want to maybe get rid of in a way that's not good for you, something you need to let go of. You don't want to get rid of it. You kind of want to bring it back into the circle of love or into the circle of one. And that was so amazingly touching. We were both like, whoa, sometimes someone says something and you're like, whoa. Could
Yeah.
you could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I found it so important. It was so piercing to me.
Yeah, the thing about the oneness is that it is love, and love is the oneness. So that's another important Taoist thing. They actually knew that what's behind all of this is there is actually a consciousness that loves and cares about us, that created this whole thing, that created your soul. It has compassion. There's actually a meaning for all this. There's a loving force behind all of this. And we talk about how what love is something that it draws a circle and it never pushes anything out of the circle. Nothing is outside the circle of love. So you can't find anything that that love would ever push outside the circle. Love is always bringing everything into the circle. So you can't push out anything outside the circle of love. That's exactly what love is. And when, we have so many traditions and everything where we're like rattling at the entity and scaring it off and spitting at it and doing all this stuff. And I am totally good with that. Like, I really feel like there's a place in polarity. We live in dualism, right? We're in this illusion of Maya where we can dance with our devils and use force and action and like, disperse things and ah. Um, but there is another way, which is, and one has to be cultivated enough to center something in the center point of the heart. But my teacher taught us a while back about when he sees entities in a treatment, he starts just singing them a love song so that they can be singing them like a love lullaby. So they can be like, oh, remember, just remember. And that love draws them back into the circle of love, where that's transmutation, right? It's like that's change. You can change something just back to its oneness form, back home. We talk about like there's a lower level of purification, which is sorting out the pure from the impure. You're like, yeah, sorting things out. But a higher, more conscious level of purification is just inviting everything back into that circle of love. Isn't that interesting?
That is powerful.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Gives
I
a
know.
completely different perspective to a lot of things we're hearing. I find it extremely interesting. I find it so courageous, powerful. It resonates with me like, oh, yeah, that makes so much more sense.
It's so true because love is what we are. I mean, I was the only natural state is to be giving love or receiving love. Everything else is a protection. It's what we are. So it makes so much sense to us, right? We're like, oh, of course, if the entity
Yeah.
is like, why scream and yell at an entity? It's just a lost part of something that thought that it's outside the circle of love.
Also puts you in the perspective of feeling much more, by lack of words, I wouldn't say powerful, but more like at ease with all of that because it makes it less gloomy and less it has to, go away or there's some, it feels much more malleable in a way. Like, hey, there's different ways. There's not that kind of violence or that, sometimes we hear that, you know, like you always want to fight something that isn't good for you. There's always, and I see that in my own life. I see that with my clients, with people, with my students. There's always something like, I need to fix this. This is not good. It needs to go away. And that really puts things in such a different perspective. I really love that. It's very powerful. I hope, yeah, people will let this pierce as much as I think it can pierce anyone because it's very powerful, beautiful information, I think.
I'm glad. I'm glad we got to talk about it.
All right, I'm just looking at all my questions. Is there still something that I want? Oh my God, I want to ask so many things, but I also don't want to take so much of your time. I really still want to ask you. I think it was in one of your courses. There was a beautiful testimonial with some farmers that had problems on their field. But of course, if you want to work with, vast terrain, you need bigger stones, let's say. Not that always the how big a stone is isn't always of the greatest importance, but you need to be realistic in a way if you can't really, work on vast terrain with an itsy bitsy mini stone, of course. They also need a little help here. But and this is important, I think, because I think a lot of people are going to do distance work. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what these farmers were doing. I believe it comes from you. Maybe I'm just telling something that you've never heard of. I assumed I got this from you. If you could tell us a little bit more about that and how distance healing, for instance, could work.
Sure, sure. I think this is coming from, I like to talk about quantum agriculture. And that's something, if someone wanted to look it up, you'd probably start finding information on this, but also just about things like protection grids or grids to like bring a lot of light into your home or space as well. Like not just about protection, but also amplifying what we want to live in and what we stand for. And so with stones, you can get great effects from small stones, right? But when you are saying, I want to do something really big, like I want to make a big protection grid on my 45-acre property, sometimes the bigger the stones, the better, because they'll just engage the electromagnetic spectrum even more.
Mm-hmm.
And we're working with a lot of multidimensional fields beyond the electromagnetic spectrum. When we work with stones, that's the secret of them, is that they go beyond the electromagnetic spectrum. But if you have big stones, you can really affect, you can create more change in like physical reality too. Now, the farmers in some of the examples, so they use quartz a lot, and in some of the examples, they will just get a picture of the
Mm-hmm.
whole field or the whole property, and then build a certain grid, crystal grid on the picture of an area that they want to control the bugs, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will, have these control sections where they don't do it. And then when they pray and feed into the picture, that's kind of like radionics, and it becomes a witness for the actual whole field. So
Mm-hmm.
when you really link it right, that picture in front of you is the whole field.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can put certain intentions into those crystals. Like, for example, smoky quartz is a great crystal to ground chaotic chi, or what we would call it sha chi, which is something that, like, if there's termites everywhere or bugs everywhere and it's just
Mm-hmm.
chaotic and things are getting in cracks and out cracks and leaking, smoky quartz is a great quartz to ground and like kind of seal that kind of energy. So you could put a smoky quartz grid on the picture, and then you could watch in the field how the bugs are actually changing out in the field, and that people do great work with it. I mean, this is some people's whole life, is they'll show the control field versus the field that they worked on, and show the differences, and have big pictures of the crop coming up better and in the fields that they're working on. So that's a little quantum agriculture. And then people also do, which I think is great, like a broadcasting rod,
Mm-hmm.
where you can put one rod on your land, right? And you can do this all different. You can just use a copper rod if you
Mm-hmm.
want. And you can actually then put a crystal on the rod where you program all this information for that crystal to broadcast out to the whole area, something specific, because crystals are just great broadcasters. And then depending on the kind you get, you can get really, crystals create coherence too, right? Because they have a crystal structure that is ordered. That's what a crystal is.
Mm-hmm.
The atomic structure is in perfect order. So a crystal, it's like if everything in nature was giving off light, a crystal is something that would give off a laser light. So it's a really good broadcaster.
Mm-hmm.
That coherence can like really make a message go out. So sometimes they'll stuff inside the tube little prayers or mantras or like essences or cards that say certain things, and just stuff it with all kind of physical prayer too. And then they put that crystal on top to radiate all that prayer out to the whole space. Yeah, this is part of the grid work application, is like the feng shui type thing and changing the energy of your spaces.
I mean, if you're not enthusiastic about crystals by now, I don't know. I find it amazing, like what you can do. You can even also, there's a company called PHI Essences. They're making all these elixirs using crystals to capture. And, when I was studying your course of stone elixirs, like, oh, makes sense. You can use crystals to make flower essences. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, I feel like I just got a sort of a rebirth and like, oh my God, I still have all of this to discover. I will never live long enough to.
Yeah.
I'm just so insanely happy about all this. I find it amazing. And just to be clear, Sarah never taught me to said to me, say something about my course, but I have or I attend three of Sarah's courses. One about grids, one about yeah, the oneness of the dragons. I'm not sure if I got the title fully right, but this is more about yeah, working with energies that maybe you want to transform into something more positive, let's say.
Mhm.
And then the one of the stone elixirs. And this is, I mean, this is just some of the courses she has. And I would really invite you all to go on her website. She also has a crystal shop. We will link all of it in the description so you can have a look at this. I really invite you, whether you want to, and I don't really like to say add something else to your healing modalities because it's always like, yeah, let's add more, more, more. But specifically for those who are working with vibrational medicine, I mean, for me, it is so essential, the stone medicine. It's just a toolkit you need to have. It's something so amazingly fast and personal and beautiful. And there's so much we've just, given a few examples of how you can work with crystals. So really would love that you all have a little look. Sarah also has a YouTube channel where I had this morning a little time to watch the video about coming back to the heart. Oh my God, that was a bomb of a lesson for those who want to heal their hearts. That was so useful. Um, I mean, you have so many great resources and you're such a help. And the way that you're teaching it is something that I've really rarely seen anywhere with such, with structure, but also giving such encouragement to the practitioner or the self healer or whomever is taking the course of just kind of doing something with that information. And I really, really appreciated that a lot. So I'm on my journey of learning a lot from you. I don't know if there is anything you want to still talk about, if maybe there are some last words you wanna say to our viewers today.
Well, I would like to illuminate the lightness and joy that Michelle is feeling, like that feeling of excitement to be excited about something again, and to just feel like this is fun, like I want to learn all of this. If you're having, I mean, that's always the feeling to follow. That's the heart. That's the feeling to follow when you feel that little bit of joy. And if anybody out there is like, I I like stones and crystals, but I would like a little bit more information with kind of like more depth and roots and more sacredness to it, than the common New Age channeled book that says this blue stone is for the throat chakra. I would be happy to join you and be a part of your on ramp for that. And Michelle, thank you so much. That was really fun to talk to you.
Yeah, it was really
Get to
fun.
know you
And
better.
yeah, thank you so much. And I'll be uploading this, and I hope that everybody enjoys this as much as I did. And thank you so much for your time and for all your beautiful information, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.